Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Friends Talking. This is a forum where men meet every week and we discuss all various issues that affect men, especially Black men. This afternoon, we are very privileged to have with us uh, a top-ranking executive in the United States today, and we discuss all and I want to issues. I want to take the opportunity of thanking Mr. Wayne Hamilton from Walmart, the Walmart Corporation, for joining us today. I'm sure that as you participate in today's program, you will be blessed by the information that Wayne has to share with us. Just to give you a little background on Friends Talking, as I said, as I alluded to earlier, we are a group of men that have been meeting since the pandemic broke about 2 years ago. And we meet every Sabbath afternoon and discuss issues pertinent to Black men. And what we have been finding out is that we're so blessed with this wealth of knowledge, and we have a young generation of young people who are growing up who needs to be exposed to this sort of information. And so this afternoon, we are happy to have a wider audience. We are broadcasting on YouTube. We are broadcasting on Facebook. We are on the Southeast Conference platforms. And today, we really hope that you will be inspired by what Wayne has to share with us. I do hope and look forward to your participation and pray that God will bless us. Let me take the opportunity of introducing to you our host for today, Mr. Edward Goodman III. Eddie, it's all over to you.
Am I unmuted now?
Go ahead, we can hear you now.
All right, very good. We are so glad that everyone was able to join us today, and we hope everybody had a good Sabbath afternoon, and you have dropped in to hear some very good information about mentoring, about sponsoring, about networking. Every now and then we have a presenter who brings a subject to the table that brings the group alive, this Friends Talking group. And Wayne Hamilton was just that about a month ago when he presented some things to us about what goes on in corporate America. And as a result, they were significantly impressed and want to have him come back again. And we thank him, of course, for coming back today. At the end of that presentation, though, he requested that when all the men came back to this particular presentation, that they brought a young person with them so that they'd have the opportunity of learning about the importance of mentorship. Of course, we as Black men realize that we need to be the one to pour into our people, but he wanted the young people there to be able to pour into them as well. Since that session, Friends Talking has expanded our footprint on the World Wide Web by adding a YouTube channel, and we'll be posting that so that folks will be able to also see us there. A little about Mr. Hamilton, because some of you may not have been able to participate in his last presentation. He began his educational journey at Andrews University in Barron Springs, Michigan, where I spent some time as well. Then he garnered 2 law degrees, one from the University of Florida and the other from North Carolina Central. His work experience at Walmart was with his work experience prior to Walmart was at General Motors as a tax attorney and at the JM Family Enterprises, another automotive industry leader. In his spare time, which is amazing that he even has any because of what he's doing, he works with several organizations that take care of the needs of those who are less fortunate than we are, through annual opportunities for medical professionals to provide free medical care to targeted communities, and then caring for the abused and neglected children with the CASA organization. His obvious desire for caring for people and their overall needs is what leads to today's discussion about mentoring. With that introduction, following the prayer that I will provide, we would like to turn the rest of the presentation over to Mr. Wayne Hamilton, executive from Walmart. Shall we bow our heads? Father, we thank you for the opportunity that you've given to us today to share information that is so good for us and so good for others. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to present the gift of walking beside someone, to show them the way and not just tell them the way. We ask you to touch the lips of Wayne Hamilton as he presents, that your spirit will allow him to be a catalyst for change, is my prayer in your name. Amen. Wayne, the floor is yours.
Certainly. Good afternoon, Friends Talking. Marcellus, thank you for inviting me back. And Edward, good to see you again. I have the privilege of joining this group. So my first thing, I gave a homework assignment the last time. Now, I can't tell looking at the screen how many people brought a mentee with them. So I'm going to presume everyone did their homework assignment. And Kenny, good to see you. Are you showing me your mentee with you, Kenny? I can see you there.
Hey, I'm at the airport. I'm about to board, so I'll try to listen in as much as I can.
All righty. Well, good to see you. So one of the things that in corporate America, I get this question a lot of times. If you had to pick one business book that you could read, what would it be and why? One of the greatest business books, and I've read tons of them over the years, is actually a pretty interesting book. It's actually a bestseller. If you go and look at it, it's rated high on the list. It's actually the Bible. And if you truly want to know about business and learn about people, one of the greatest business books you'll ever read is the Bible. And if you look at many books after that, you will see how many books track what is said in the Bible. Specifically, one of my favorite areas that I challenge people with is around reading the book of Proverbs. So I'm going to do a couple of things today. I'm going to start out with 3 texts. I'm going to talk about an advisor or coach versus a mentor, role model, versus a sponsor or champion. We're going to talk about some examples in the Bible. Then I'm going to close out with what are some practical things that we can do to help mentor the next generation. And that's going to be where I focus today. So I have 3 texts. The first one is in Proverbs 27:17. And it says, as the iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friends. The second one is Proverbs 1 verse 5. And it says, a wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. And the third one is Proverbs 13, verse 20, and it reads, he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companions of fools will be destroyed. As we go through today, we'll think about, so one of the things they tell in corporate America, you need to have an advisor, a mentor, and a sponsor. So let's see if we can define those. And I like to ask questions just to make sure we're staying engaged. So who can define an advisor for me? Not a trick question, it's real easy. Advisor or a coach versus a mentor versus a sponsor. Eddie, you're on mute if you're responding.
So while folks are thinking, Wayne, let me just inform individuals that they can talk to us via the chat on YouTube or via the chat on Zoom. So if you want to answer the question that Wayne is asking, you can do it via any of those mediums.
Right. So let me help define those and then we'll continue. Advisor is someone who you can call to ask a quick question. I'll use Eddie as my example through this. He and I have talked. He says, Wayne, I think you've got I have an idea. I want to bounce this off you to get your thoughts on it. And I see the answer starting to come in. Thank you. So they answer a quick question. I have an idea. let me know your thoughts on this. A mentor or a role model, where we're going to spend a lot of our time today, is really someone who knows you and can give you feedback based on their relationship with you. An advisor does not need to have a personal relationship with you to answer questions. So someone may say, look, I'm thinking about 2 law schools, 3 law schools, or I'm thinking between pursuing an MBA or a JD or the ministry. An advisor can just quickly answer those questions for you. The third thing is a sponsor. And a sponsor is someone who can be a champion for you. Now, what a sponsor is that's the person who will talk about you or for you when you're not in the room. And that's what we say in corporate America. When decisions are being made about your career and you're not in the room, this is the person that can speak up and say, hey, let me give this person a chance or an opportunity. I told you the Bible is the best business book out there. So let's start there. In the Bible, there are a number of mentoring relationships. And maybe you haven't thought about them that way. One of them is Jethro and Moses. Do we know who Jethro was? All right, we're gonna need some engagement here now.
Moses'
That
father.
was Moses' father-in-law, right?
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. And what did he help Moses with?
With his organization skills.
Excellent.
Administration.
Administrative, what else?
Well, basically, that his organization skills that Jethro gave to Moses was what helped him to manage himself and manage the whole trip from Egypt to the Promised Land up to that point.
Excellent.
He also
where
provided
Moses-
guidance.
Guidance.
Up to where Moses handed off to Joshua.
Yes. Great starting point. I want to go back 40 years earlier, though. Remember, Moses fled Egypt.
Yeah.
And Jethro was the man that took him in, because he eventually marries his daughter.
Mhm.
So that's an important point, that this mentoring relationship lasted over 40 years. He took who was a prince in Egypt and taught him to be what?
A shepherd.
A shepherd. So can you imagine taking a prince and trying to teach him to be a shepherd?
It's going to be a whole lot of what do you call it now? A whole lot of kicking against the pricks, as the
Oh,
Bible
there
puts
you
it.
go. So imagine now, for 40 years, he's worked with Moses, he's taught him, he's helped him, and ultimately, as you said, prepared him to be a leader for another 40 years. Who was Moses a mentor to?
Joshua.
He was a mentor to the Israelites.
Yes.
I also want to say that the advice given to Moses from Jethro is basically what we have now as the municipal governance system,
Yes.
which is a powerful thing that we have now,
Yes.
which was actually instituted by well, not instituted, advised to Moses by Jethro, the municipal system that we have now.
Correct. So the point I'm going after, and I agree with all of that, is how generational mentoring can be. To whom much is given, much is expected. So Jethro poured into Moses, Moses poured into Joshua, and this is the importance of leaning in. And I know Kenny's about to jump on a plane, and I should have started this earlier. You know, people oftentimes come and ask me for advice and said, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. And I start out by telling them this: to choose a mentor, you must do a number of things. First, you must understand who is speaking to you. I start out by telling them, I've got 2 children. One's in their 20s. One is the little one sitting here in my lap. How old are you? 9. So I have 2 children. I've been a professional for 30 plus years, married for 30 something years. So you need to understand, why is it important that I tell the person that?
You have responsibilities yourself.
I have responsibilities. What else?
Experience.
Experience. And it's telling you about my specific experience.
Mhm.
It's also telling you where I am in life in terms of what I've done. And why is that important? If someone was wanting to go into the medical field and they're looking for a mentor, may I be the best person?
No.
I like that. So why do you say no?
You want someone who is already in the area that you're looking to go into.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to tell you a story about that. That was a trick question.
I would say yes and no.
I would say yes. I would say yes also.
It's yes or no. And a lot of that's going to depend on what? How many doctors I know.
Yeah. Your network.
My network. So if I told you I've got 4 cousins, at least 4 cousins that are doctors, maybe I might be able to give you some advice. So the other thing you must ask is what? Is this person a godly person? Why is that important?
Goes without saying. The advice is gonna come directly from the Bible, from the link that person has with the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely. But not all godly people or profess to be godly people are godly people. So you must tie up what they tell you they believe with how they're living. And I like that one. Ethical background. Thank you, Dr. Carrington. Ethical backgrounds are key. And why is all this key? Because if you're getting advice from someone who lacks any of the above, how good is that advice going to be? All right, it's going to be interesting, right? It's not going to be very good. How many of you ever gotten advice from people you shouldn't have taken?
Yeah, many.
I think that's every day.
Yeah, and we follow it blindly, right?
That's we were discussing this today at church. The same thing. How we follow the masses of the media. We go along like lambs to the slaughter every day, and we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful of that.
So when we begin to think about advice, so we set the tone. You must have, as a mentee, you must have an understanding of scripture yourself. You're using the Bible as a business book. We've talked about Jethro and Moses. We talked about Moses and Joshua. Not to leave the ladies out, there's Deborah and Barak. In Judges, Deborah was one of the judges of Israel. Another good example, there's Priscilla, Aquila, and Apollos in the Bible when they worked under whose tutelage? Who did these 3 people work with?
Paul and Silas, I think, right?
Yeah, there you go, Paul and Silas. So Paul himself was being a mentor. As a matter of fact, for those of us who claim Christianity, we have, as the 12 disciples and the apostles afterward, to be thankful for. Because if they were not good mentors, would we be on the call today?
Not at all.
No, we definitely would not. Definitely
Would not. So we begin to think. So now I'm tying the dots. Now, who would you say is the best mentor that ever existed?
Jesus Christ himself.
Jesus Christ himself. When you begin to look through it, he had 12 men, but even though he was the best mentor, he still had one mentee that had some challenges.
Oh, yeah.
You can't save everyone, but he tried nonetheless. So here's some of the things a mentor should do and challenge you. It teaches you to be observant, teaches you listening skills, trust, encouragement, creates opportunities for you, correction through feedback, challenges you, helps you to empower others, makes you think. However, you ever had someone that makes you think that you just did not like? Thought they made your life tough.
That's every day.
Yeah, some more than others, right? So
Yeah.
These are the things that a mentor must have. So as young people, if you are on the mentee, if your mentor is not teaching you how to listen, how to observe, how to build trust, encouraging you and teaching you skills and creating opportunities and correcting through feedback, What does that, where does that leave you, and what should you start thinking about?
Whether you need to make an adjustment.
Whether you need to make an adjustment. Absolutely. So how do we make this practical? One of the things, I had a good friend that said something to me. Many of you are familiar with corporate America, and many of you are familiar with businesses. And I know Dr. Carrington, you're on here, and others who are business owners. What's one of the things that every business should have to be successful?
That's a wide open question now.
Well, let's go for it. I got time.
Policies and procedures.
Policies and procedures. Someone said money. I agree with you. What else?
Vision statement.
A vision statement. Hold that one because we're going to come back to that. That's an excellent one. What else?
Must have capital.
What's that last one?
Capital.
Capital. Absolutely. We're going to come to that one too. What
Business
else?
plan.
Leadership.
Business plan.
Demand. What else?
They must have a mission which they not only live by, but that everyone else buys into. It's taught right across the board.
Excellent.
And it runs through the DNA. For example, if you go to Nike, the guy who sweeps the floor at Nike, he has the same vision for Nike or has the same understanding of what Nike is, just like the guy around the table in a boardroom.
Absolutely. And you said the word I was looking for. And let's start out with that, a boardroom. We need a board of advisors. And who should be on your board of advisors?
Competent and knowledgeable persons.
Competent and knowledgeable persons. Who else?
Most importantly, godly people. We're gonna go back to that again.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. You need to have godly people at your table. So I used to tell my older daughter this, that she would have a board of directors. On her board of directors would be her parents, because the parents were funding the capital and the money for a lot of the endeavors. So we needed to be on there. She could have aunts and uncles if she so chose. She could also have people in the industry she was interested in.
I got a question.
Sure.
Was the leaders of Israel in the days of Christ, were they good leaders? I mean, somebody you could go to for counsels?
So you're asking a general question about leaders. So the answer is in the days of Israel, and I think this is where you're going, there were people who purported to be leaders. Whether they were good leaders or not would depend on the source of their information. You're going to find many leaders in this world, but they're not godly leaders. They may give you the right answers, but you're looking for people who will help provide and grow your spiritual life before your business life first. We need to put it, the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these things will be added onto you. So when I'm talking about the board, you first surround yourself. Now, some are going to say, I don't have parents, or my parents are this, or my parents are that. However, if they are funding you, you have to have them close. Someone talked about a vision statement. I always would share, you need to have a vision statement and a goal, because that's what helps you keep grounded. Someone said Nike. I sort of don't like that answer. I agree, but I first start with Walmart because that's where I am. And it basically says, save money so people can live better. And that's what drives a lot of the decisions the company makes. So as a board, and this goes for the mentors as well as the mentees, you're going to need a mission statement. You're going to need what drives me, what wakes me up every morning. If you don't have something that wakes you up every morning, you'll never be truly successful because you're not leaning into something. So you have your advisory board, and with your advisory board, you should share your ideas. I used to tell my daughter that, look, since I'm funding a lot of these, it doesn't matter how many people on this board, I have a majority vote.
No, No, I heard I don't know if you guys know John Carter, one of our leaders from Australia. He said something, I was watching him, he said, always be suspicious of those that are in authority, our leaders. And you said something earlier on about studying for yourself. You know, don't just take what everybody say. You got to prove it.
Yep.
Paul said it. You got to prove it. You got to investigate it. Not just, you know, it's like when you take what somebody else hand on to you, is like eating second class meal, like a child sucking the milk from the mother, so to speak. So we have to investigate, you know, because we are human beings. Whether your leaders are not, like you said, you got good leaders, you know, can influence you to do bad things. They can, and leaders who can influence us to do the right thing. And so every leaders, you got to investigate what they share with you. That's my belief.
That's a great point. And I'm glad you're underscoring my point, because that's what makes this important. If you have a leader, then that's not giving you the source of their information, you should be going in the other direction. A leader should be driving you back to the source. What is their source and how they're looking at it? And we should not be so enamored with a leader that we fail to see the warning signs that something is not right. You're right, we should be suspicious. Suspicious is not negative. Suspicious says we must test. Even scripture says, the Bible says, test, prove me now and there thing, comes out of Malachi. So not even God himself says, just accept me because I say I'm God. He says, prove me.
Right.
And that's what we must do. And that's, Paul, good to see you there. I heard you last week. So Paul's right. You must figure out, where does your leader align on these principles? With that being said, on your board, and if you're adding to your board, you have your parents or loved ones, maybe the person who's raising you. And as I said, I share with my daughter, because I am funding, I have the majority vote. There'll be times that we'll come to a decision that I agree with and I will fund. There will come times where I don't agree with, but nonetheless, when she's old enough, I will still fund. And there are going to be times where I disagree, and not only will I not fund, she's strongly encouraged not to do it. With your board, what you should be doing, the beginning of every year, corporations go through this, whether they use a calendar year or a fiscal year. How many sit down and said, look, here's what I plan to do this year. Here are the goals I want to do. Here are the trips. Here's the education, the places I want to visit. So you and your board should set up and test against your goals and objectives to see if what you're doing is going to get you there. My father used to often tell me, if you're on a rudderless ship, anywhere you're going is right. Wilpert. You're on mute, Wilpert.
Okay, Wayne. Now, the majority of businesses in this country are small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of those small businesses are single operator businesses.
Mm-hmm.
How does what you're saying fit into this single operator small business?
What I'm sharing with you is anyone, whether you are a sole operator or you are a young person trying to figure your way through life, it's the same discipline, the same process. You don't have to own a business to have a board of advisors. I have a board of advisors. I work, but I have a board of advisors that I can call and say, I have this problem. Or this is what I'm planning to do this year. And Wilpert, if someone should say to you, look, and I don't know who gave me the Nike example, which is a good one. If I have a mission statement and a vision, and I've had the same mission statement and vision for 3 years, and on year 4, I show up with a different one, and I have the same board of advisors over the years, someone should stop me and said, I don't understand. what happened? The problem with a lot of small businesses today is they don't take the time to bring on the board of advisors, which would also be them. And so, Carrington, thank you there. Everyone needs a board of advisor, regardless of the size of their business. And that's a challenge. There are certain principles that exist because of scale. And what's going to happen over time, Wilbert, is that people should say, look, especially young people, if my daughter always wanted to be a dentist, and we would sit down and talk about what does that mean? How is she going to get there? What's the plan of action? What classes and what experiences will she need? And she went all the way through and graduated from dental school. But there was a discipline that was behind it. And she actually started out wanting to be a physician. So we have to have flexibility. It doesn't mean we change our vision or direction, but I'm telling us that most of us never get traction because we fail to understand who we are. And that's what a mentor can help you. So people, I would jokingly say, so you understand. So if we have a church meeting and all of a sudden someone decides, some churches have greeters, people that greet you at the door, welcome you and sign you in. So if someone at my church decides to put me in a greeter position, what should those people that know me should say what?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
All right. So I have my friend Cleveland on the phone on the call here, and he said, "Don't do it." He's right. I am not the person who you're going to call to be the greeter. They said I don't have a friendly enough face. I'm okay with that. I know me. Now that doesn't mean I can't hold a discussion, but I don't have the gift of hospitality. My wife, on the other hand, has that gift. So one of the things your mentor should be doing is to help you figure out what are the gifts you have, both natural and spiritual gifts.
So Wayne, I just wanted to ask a question here. I'm going to give you a scenario. There's a young man in the outbacks of Africa, or let's not even go to Africa. Let's say Jamaica. He is going to high school, matriculating through high school, but he does not have, or he does not know the sort of individual talents that you're describing. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have people who are doctors, lawyers, and to give him the sort of advice. And he's going through high school not knowing what he wants to do. He's just going to school because it is something to do. His parents says you have to go to school. Where would a young man with lacking all those resources turn to get that sort of knowledge, that sort of guidance from? He doesn't have a dad because, most of us are single parent homes, and his poor mom is so busy working to send him to school. Where does he turn to get this sort of advice and help to channel him? And I mean, okay, and for most of the people on this line, they would have the church setting, so they will be able to get that information from church. What if he doesn't have that? Where does he turn to?
It's funny, Marcellus. Why did you put the burden on the young man and not put the burden on yourself when you see that young man to reach out to him?
I agree with you 100%, but I'm putting the perspective I'm giving the question from his perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm saying to myself, I'm looking back and I'm putting myself in that situation, and I was saved because my mom was there and I had a church family that I could draw on. Right. But there were colleagues in my school who did not have those resources, and I'm trying to get an understanding from their perspective. Where would they turn to get that sort of assistance?
So here's the reality, though, and I still have the same response. Yeah, we have shifted the burden to that young person to figure it out. Mm-hmm. If they have no idea, it's the responsibility of the adults in that person's life to do it. That's the point I'm going after. Because you're assuming, look, when you're 12 or 13, you have an idea, board, advisor, mentor, sponsor, champion, those things are foreign to you. Yeah. What is not foreign, though, is someone like you who says, look, hey, what are you doing? Who are you? So we have placed the burden and the responsibility of young people to figure out things they do not even know.
Mm-hmm.
And then later go, man, what resources are available? We are their resources.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Carrington has said something there. So let me dive in, because I see that. Because whether or not you want to accept it, that young man has resources. That young lady has resources. They're called friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're called teachers. And the worst one is the television.
Mm-hmm.
So they are getting advice. The problem is we're waiting for the young person to come up to us and say, man, you look successful. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
Therein lies the problem. As Christian-minded people, God should impress upon your heart when you see someone to use the right words. So I'll give you a quick example. I see a hand there. It says Daniel Smith, but I don't know you as Daniel Smith. I know you as Danny, so I apologize. Let me just answer it this way. Today I saw, I happened to be in church, and I saw a young man sitting there reading the Sabbath school lesson right after the Sabbath school class and before the 11 o'clock service. I go, man, this cannot be an Adventist. Now, y'all chuckle, y'all can make up anything you want, but anyone who starts to read the lesson, I quickly looked over and realized he was reading the lesson for this week. So I leaned over and said, hey, let me ask you a question. Are you enjoying what you're reading? And he said, no. He said, look, I'm new to this. So I said, hey, I haven't seen you before. He said, look, I saw a program on television about a week ago. And when it got to the credits, it said Seventh-day Adventist Church. So I showed up. First time in an Adventist church. What I did was I saw someone reading the lesson. It seemed odd. And then when I asked him, who are you? He starts to tell me this story. And my next words, I said, hey, you seem very interested in this. Would you like some Bible study? He says, absolutely. God leads us to people who we should speak to. We need to open our eyes when he tells us and follow it. So instead of that young man looking for us, we should be seeking out more for young people to help. Therein lies the problem. That's why I said, Marcellus, we have shifted the responsibility to young people to find a resource they don't even know exists. So Daniel, I'm sorry. Good to see you, my friend.
You too. Is Wayne, you know, it's always damn to you. We go way back. This is like family having him on. When June told me he was on, I was like, I gotta jump on. I gotta jump on and show him big support. So yeah, I like the question you pose, Marcel, because it's interesting because we assume that there's organizations that's out there that can help the youth. We assume that, you know, there's Operation Reachbacks, there's the Pathfinders, there's the Boy Scouts. We assume that there's a ton of resources and programs that's always out there for the youth, for that young man, you know. But what I'm hearing Wayne saying is like, uh, yes, these programs are in place, but then let's look within our own circle, within our own sphere, that we can be an influence of change to some young person that's around us. And sometimes that's difficult for us men sometimes, because we don't want to waste our time, for one thing. We don't want to say, hey, I got this expertise, but this young person may not seem like they're really interested, so I'm not going to put myself out there, be vulnerable, so they could just waste my time, because we could be doing something else. We want to be around people who are serious and to influence them. But what Wayne is saying, we have to. That's making ourselves a little vulnerable to see that person that's out there and may not wait and say, hey, how are you doing? Do you need some help in school? It really makes a person vulnerable to get out there. So I think that's a challenge for us, establish men and women to go beyond our comfort zone.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And you're spot on. You said something that resonated with me. I'm a little busy. And if I stop to ask this question, I'm now going to be derailed. I'm going to be behind. And you know what? I got my own sons, my own daughters, and it's not working out there too well. And how am I going to do this? There are all these things that rush through our minds when God has simply said, I need you to say something to someone. Like the dialogue. Any other questions, any other thoughts?
The other way to look at that is making a connection is simply that, making a connection. And we've talked about the different avenues that we can use in helping those who need it. If I really am too busy, an advisor or a sponsor, an advisor or a mentor can direct them to the people that they know who have that particular time.
Absolutely. So good mentors provide resources. Henry Ford there's a book, I think it's called The Laws of Success. It's a 2-volume, 16-chapter book. If you like to read, this is a book I suggest you pick up. And one of his critics said that Ford wasn't too smart. This is the Ford of the Ford Motor Company, by the way. And they go, yeah, he's not too smart. He goes, I don't have to be. You see this thing, the phone? Yeah. He says, any question I have, I know who to call to get the answer. He knew the resources. The problem with us is we don't have to solve all the problems, but at a minimum, we must know someone on this call who can say, hey, I need you to meet a doctor. I need you to meet a nurse. I need you to meet someone in this sphere. And I guarantee you probably know someone. Wilpert, you had your hand up. You're still on mute, Wilpert. Wilpert doesn't like to go off mute.
Yeah.
Wilpert, you're on mute, sir.
Okay. Okay, wait, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Just about myself, I came to this country from Jamaica. I came here as an adult, and when I got here, it was a shock to me. Different culture, different technologies, and different infrastructure. It was a shock to me coming here. And one of the things that I wanted so badly was a mentor. I tried to get into certain things, and I remember getting into a personal business. And there are certain times when I ran into roadblocks or steep curves, as it were, in my business, and I wanted to quit. And later on, I found that there were people right around me who had information that could benefit me. And those people were busy accessing the services that I was providing. And what I was looking for was a mentor. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I try to figure things out on my own. And by the time I got to figure it out sufficiently, I had found myself in what I'd call economic slavery. And it took me a while to get out of that economic slavery.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay. Now I have young people, even my own children, who I can't talk to them because they don't have time to listen to a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. I invited two young men to come on with me. One of them, his father stood in the way and said, "This is not a subject for Sabbath afternoon." And the other one, he at the last minute today, he said that he wasn't able to make it. Mm-hmm. So you know, how do we get people interested in listening to what you have to say? How do you get them to see that you're not intervening in their lives as much as you're trying to mentor them?
Just tell them Wayne Hamilton is going to be on the program. They'll come.
You know, Wilbert, I've funny day. I've heard some well-meaning Christian people tell us what topics are good or bad, but I go to their homes after the church service and they're beating up the pastor and talking about a whole bunch of other stuff. And then they want to tell me we're having a discussion about mentoring, which is in the Bible, that we can point to examples. So, Wilbert, I've learned something about me, and hopefully you'll appreciate when this comes across this way. I've learned that going back and forth is not my ministry. Mm-hmm. Going back and forth with people is not my, I don't do well with that. I think I'm getting too old, so my patience has run out. But it's really about us trying to be better. So we've talked about life here, but we've also based it on biblical principles that existed in scripture. And what I find is many times, Wilbert, people are afraid of topics because they don't understand the topic or understand the relevancy of it. And that's what makes it hard. So I see, Kenny, how you doing? Another one of the year.
Hey, I'm about to plane flight. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can.
Hey, yeah. Just there's some young people on the line, so let's not let. It'll be good to let them speak too. They may feel a little shy because they're not comfortable in the group. So that's all I meant.
Thank you.
Right.
So
all right.
I see. So Dr. Carrington, I know your son cannot be. I didn't even. You know what, Dr. Carrington? The amount of years I've known you, I did not realize there's a Swellen Carrington Jr.
Yeah, yes, there is, and he's on this evening.
Oh, I see him. I'm looking at him right now.
Okay,
on my stream, there's a young man. He looks young. Now he got beard. I don't have any hair beard. Rajat Anderson. He's on here. He looks sort of young. So I'm going to know you old folks and talk to some of the young people for a minute, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
So Carrington Jr., give me your age range. 20s, 30s?
Late 30s.
Man, you old. Rajat, what about you?
Yeah, late 30s as well.
Oh man, you guys just age well. So let me ask you a question. Let me start out. I'll do Carrington Jr. and then Rajat next. So you've heard us talk about mentoring. You've heard us talk about the board. What has resonated with you, or what did you know now that you wish you knew about 5 years ago? And there's a younger person, what would you tell them? Sort of a compound question. I apologize for compound question.
No, that's okay, man. I appreciate the question. I appreciate you posing it to me. I will say that for me, one of the aspects of this conversation today that I don't think I really spent a lot of time thinking about was developing a board where you have key stakeholders, whether it be those funding your operation or your interest or whatever the item is, along with those people who are godly and those who are willing to be subject matters or who are subject matters in your area. For me, I'm blessed that I have a dad that I can kind of talk to and seek counsel from. He has been one who has funded basically my whole educational career. And so, from that perspective, I do go to him. So that's cool. I would say I have a godly wife as well. So we definitely get to bounce things off of each other. But I think, again, the aspect of having that board really allows you to have like this greater lift, if you will, right? You know what I'm saying? Just you and your spouse. You can probably lift a couple of things, but having that board, man, that really can guide and also offer suggestions exponentially from what I'm hearing. That just really changes the game. And so that's for me what I'm taking away. And then the next part too, because you're right, I'm in the late 30s, so I'm in a position now where, young professional moving to a different space. So it's very critical for me to always be looking back, if you will, to have that arm to extend, whereby maybe it's not necessarily my profession, but if there's any way I can provide that advice or be that advisor, if you will, to someone, that would be critical. So those are the two really good points that I think, from here, like tomorrow, for real, like I'm already thinking about who my advisory team can be, to really get that lift going, to really get that wind going in the sail there to move even faster.
Great. Thank you, Rajat. So what part of the country are you in, Swellen? Are you down south, South Florida?
I'm actually in Orlando. So Daniel Smith, I know he goes to Patmos. I'm over here at Forest Lake Church, but I'm in the Orlando area.
Okay, Rajat, how are you, and where are you based?
I'm good, man. Thank you. I'm currently in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. I was invited by my father-in-law.
Who's your father-in-law?
Dr. Carrington.
Oh man, he loaded up today. All right. Gotta be hitting some brownie points.
Yeah. Married to his beautiful daughter.
Oh, he's smart too. You notice that? Beautiful daughter.
Yeah, man.
He got some good coaching going on there.
This has been awesome, man. I'm just listening, and I come from a product of one of these young men that didn't have biological parents in his life, right? Mm-hmm. But I was blessed to have, by God's grace, my grandparents, specifically my grandfather, Ronald Thomas, who passed away last year. What I can say is, when I was younger, I had all of these opportunities. The difference is now I'm able to accept it.
What does that mean?
Meaning, like, I had the mentors. Dr. Carrington, my father-in-law, he's a mentor, of course, but he's been in my life pretty much my whole life, right? People in the church that I grew up with, there's been men in my life that weren't necessarily my father, but the opportunities were there and they would come to me, but I wouldn't accept it. There would be times where, like, I hear these guys talking, but I don't really care to hear about it. And I think maybe some of that had to do with the fact that maybe I should be hearing this from my real father, who, where are you? You should be caring about me in this situation. But as I got older and I started to realize and understand as I got older that it's not necessarily, not having a biological parent in your life doesn't mean that God didn't provide these people for you. So as I got older, I defied my grandfather a lot, but here I am now, 37, married with 3 kids, and I find myself trying to implement the same things into my children that he taught me growing up.
Wow.
So, yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm just sitting here soaking it up, enjoying it. And of course, my father-in-law, he's an amazing person. Everybody knows who Dr. Carrington is. So,
So when it sounds as if Dr. Carrington groomed the groom for his daughter.
Well, you know what? I need to be like him because I've got 2 girls. So he's got a vested interest in getting some good young men. He don't need any crazy, I'm sorry, y'all are great. You don't need crazy son-in-laws, and daughter-in-laws. So this is important. This is why this mentoring is so key. You got to get it right. I'm gonna do one more young man. And then Sister June, how are you? I know last time on here, you said you're gonna bring some ladies. Chris, how are you? Chris Asham, I think your son's on here.
Yeah, so Nick is on. Nicholas, not sure if he's in a position to speak.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm here.
Nicholas, how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Just having a good afternoon.
Good. Are you older than the last 2 or are you younger?
I'm much younger. I'm 21.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's talk to you. What are you thinking? What's going through your mind?
You mean like just in general, like with like the whole mentee thing, or like just like I guess there's a lot on my mind. You know what I mean?
All right. So I'm gonna let you answer that, but you notice how wide open my question was?
Yeah.
It was deliberate. Yeah. So wherever Nicholas is going to start this discussion, that's where we're going to take it from. I didn't box him into a corner. I just said, what do you think? Now he's smart. My dad's on this call. Now, where are we going to take this? Are you talking about the mentoring, or are you just talking life in general? So, Nicholas, where do you want to start?
I mean, let's see. Like, how can you, I guess, aside from looking from someone who we said who's like godly, and we talked about like the different things that, like, you know, like aid in success for businesses, but like when you're just meeting people who could potentially be mentors, like I'm a pilot, right? I'm a budding pilot, and I'm in, like, you know, I'm around a bunch of, you know, non-Adventist people who aren't like me, who didn't grow up like me. But these people still have a lot of, you know, information and a lot of like mentorship that they can still give me. But like, how is that, like, how do you initially, I guess, you know, decide or judge whether or not, you know, people
Right.
can give you great advice, even if they're not, you know, outward godly people?
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you say you're budding pilot. What does that mean?
So I'm a multi-engine, like, commercial pilot. Like, I have like all my ratings. I'm building my hours now to become an airline transport pilot.
Okay.
I'm looking to fly for like FedEx at some point. So now I work as a flight instructor, and I get to meet a lot of different, you know, private jet pilots and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And I like to talk to these people to see how their career paths were.
Right.
And there's obviously not a lot of Black people, so it's, you know, that's one thing that it's kind of difficult to find people who might have similar backgrounds to me. It's a
Sure.
very white collar career, like, so like it's kind of hard to find people to relate to, I guess.
Yep. So here's what's funny. Sister June, I'm gonna come to you in a minute. So Sister June's already throwing the chat. I have Seventh-day Adventists. My screen's not treating me well today. So Sister June's on here. She's already telling you, I've got, Sister June, speak for yourself, sister.
I'm just saying I have a friend who is the SDA and he's a pilot. So connections, this is someone that I can connect you with.
Right. Where are you
Very
based,
much
Nicholas?
appreciated.
Thank you. Nicholas, where are you
I'm
based?
I live in North Carolina right now, working like around the Raleigh-Durham airport.
Okay. And June, where's your SDA pilot friend?
He is in San Antonio, but he's currently flying. He's doing medical flights currently, and he flies from the Virgin Islands to the
Perfect.
US.
Thank you, June. So Nicholas, she has one. I have three good friends who are pilots. One's a Seventh-day Adventist guy. He doesn't do it for a living. He just does it for fun. He's got his own jet. And one of my friends is a pilot for Walmart. We have a fair number of aircraft. And then the other one is a pilot for UPS, lives out of Atlanta. You see how this is easy?
Yeah.
His background, and I've got three. June's got at least one. So between us, we have four. And so Nicholas, is your father from Jamaica? Are you from Jamaica?
Yeah, I was born in Jamaica.
Okay, so one of my friends is a Jamaican, and it took me a while to figure out he was a pilot because he kept talking about he didn't have any sense. And then I finally realized he was a pilot, and he flies the 747s because we got one of those. So he flies the big planes. So before we hook up, so what Nicholas should now say to me is, how do I connect with you after this call so I can get introductions?
Yeah, 100%.
So you gotta help these young people think it through. So Nicholas says he's a pilot, he's struggling. So let me tell you, advice can come from a lot of places, but you must always screen the advice. So an ungodly person, if you will, can give you advice, but you must always measure it against the word of God.
Okay.
So Nicholas wants to get into pilot. So we've helped one young person today from this call. So what we should all do is, anyone else who knows pilots, you should say, hey, how do we hook this young man up to reach more people? And once you meet one pilot, and this guy, as a matter of fact, who's from Jamaica, a lot of his friends are now flying for Emirates, because Air Jamaica, when they went out of business, hired a lot of Jamaican pilots that ended up in Saudi Arabia. So they're out there. Anything else we can answer for you? Then I'm going to turn to Sister June, who said she was going to invite some young ladies. I want to hear from them. Nicholas, I give you one more shot. Any more things you want to talk about, or you figure you're going to get off while you can?
No. Now I'm more trying to figure out how I can connect with these people. That's my next plan of action, trying to see if I can, message.
So if your father's on here, that means
Yes.
someone invited him.
He's a part of the WhatsApp group, so he'll get the number.
Okay, see how easy this is. Easy.
Yeah.
Daniel Smith, you see
Thank
how
you.
easy this is? How we solve problems? All right, Sister
So,
June.
so just before June speaks, Wayne, I just wanted to get an input here. So out of the whole, what has transpired with Friends Talking over the 2 years that we've been in existence, this is one of the aims that we have had. And Wayne, we thank God for you because you have now crystallized all our ideas and our thinking into one, and you're bringing the cake into the oven. We added all the ingredients, we mix it up, but you're now baking it for us and helping us to progress forward. So the group of men who are on Friends Talking, we have about 80 men on the list of Friends Talking or WhatsApp chat group. And these are men who are semi-retired, still in their profession, young men. The age ranges from as low as 30 to a high of, I think the oldest member we may have on Friends Talking is about 69, 70 years old. So these resources are available to all of our young men. These resources are available to all our young people. And I just want to put a plug in that if you want to get any sort of information or anything, contact any member of Friends Talking. I will be, I'll ask my technical person if they can put that information on the screen to help us to get all of that information out to our young people. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Hey, Cleveland, are you still here?
Yes, Wayne, I am.
Yes,
I
you
sure
had a
am.
question. I saw your hand go up. You had a question. So I invited Cleveland.
Yeah,
he may be a little old, but I invited him.
appreciate the invite. And it's good to be around a group of godly men to talk to see how we can edify and help each other be better husbands, better fathers, and just better peers. But when you would ask a question not directed to me, but to the younger men, and that I do identify as, about what we would have taken away from part of the discussion, what stuck with me is not waiting for. There were times in my life, my young life, where when I needed counsel and I lacked the courage or I wasn't sure where to go. And I think you talked about the experience at church today where you saw a young man and you made the first move. I know I am still young, but there's going to be folks, young men that are younger than me that need guidance. And if the Holy Spirit would have impressed upon my heart to make a move, don't wait. Just approach these men because you never know the impact that you can have when you reach out to someone that is younger than you to say, hey, I was there. I understand. How can I help you? And I think sometimes we, some men in the Adventist church would have attained levels and they feel like, hey, I've arrived. And they don't reach back enough times to give a hand because they're expecting the young men to say, hey, I see you've arrived. How can you help me? And I think the reverse can help these youngsters who lack courage like myself or just not sure where to go.
Thank you, Cleveland. Carlo, Ray, and then Sister June, I'm gonna need your help with one or two young ladies. Carlo, how are you?
I am well.
Hello.
And this is my son, Kurt.
Kurt, how are you?
12.
12. All right, he's the youngest one. So come on, man, don't duck your head. We want to talk to you. Ready to go. Ready to go. Kurt, how are you?
I'm fine.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where do you go to school?
Arden High School.
Which high school?
Arden High School.
So you're in Jamaica, it sounds like.
Yes.
All right. What part of Jamaica is that now?
Kingston.
Come on.
All right. So you have a whole bunch of people here, but let's ignore them. It's just you and me talking. Is that okay? What do you like about Jamaica?
The loneliness.
Loneliness. I will admit that one shocked me. Didn't see that one coming.
I think it's necessary to explain the situation. We've just moved back to Jamaica. So 2 weeks ago was literally his first day ever at school here. So
oh wow.
So
that's tough. Moving is tough, isn't it?
Tough. And actually the main reason I raised my hand was I wanted to see if maybe you had any words of encouragement in terms of shoring up his self-confidence. As you can see, he's an intelligent enough young man, but he has some self-doubt issues.
All right. So Carlo, where did you move from back to Jamaica?
Turks and Caicos Islands.
Okay, Turks and Caicos. So, and what's his name again, Carlo?
Kurt. K-U-R-T, Kurt.
Kurt. By the time I was your age, I would have moved to New York, moved back to Jamaica, and then
New York.
Oh yeah, I lived in Brooklyn. I moved to Brooklyn when I was about 6 years old. There's nothing worse than moving when you move to a new area and you know nobody. I moved back to Jamaica, and by the time I got back to Jamaica, it was difficult because I had an American accent, they told me, and they said I wasn't from Jamaica, and it's tough. But what you have is you've got a great dad there, right? I'm sure dad's saying, look, I need you close to me so I can help take care of you. What you're going to have to figure out is how do I trust my dad and know he's making the right decisions for me? And I'll tell you the truth, sometimes it doesn't look like parents know what they're doing. We think they make the big mistakes, but you're going to have to trust the process. When someone says that, it simply means I'm going to know my dad's going to have my best interest. And what that means is I now have to figure out my job. So you know what your job is? What do you think your job is right now? He's on mute, Carlos.
Don't know why. Sorry, go ahead.
Take care of my grandmother.
Okay, that's a great job. You gotta take care of Granny. That's important. What's your other job?
To go to painful school.
School's not painful. It's necessary. You gotta go. Yeah. What makes it painful? Don't know the kids yet?
No, it's painful because you have to sit in the hot sun.
Oh, boy.
My dad comes so late, so I have to sit there for hours.
Oh boy. So dad's busy, huh? All right. So tell you what, you've only been there 2 weeks. Let's make an agreement with each other. Can we check in about 4 weeks or 1 month and you can tell me how it's going? Can we do that? Let me know if things change.
Okay.
He can't hear you.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna make a deal. All right. Thank you, Kurt. So I'm gonna do Ray, June, and then Sebastian, I see your hand up, but I need to get some young ladies involved here if you don't mind. Ray.
Quick thought. Just like the gentleman, who was it? The young pilot?
Mm-hmm.
Nick, I think his name was Nicholas.
Yes, Nicholas Ashman.
Yeah, Nicholas Ashman. Yeah. So Nicholas, incidentally, some of us older men on the chat, incidentally, have been in the same exact position that you're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
What has worked out for us is that we've had a church setting. For example, I go to this church called Tabernacle, SDA Church, right? And in my church setting as a young man coming up was Dr. Carrington, was Dr. McCullough, Dr. McCullough's father, Roger's grandfather, Elder Thomas, and others who would help us young men to understand a lot more about ourselves than we thought we knew.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, it has fostered that in us now so that we too can become mentors. And I don't want to bore you with the long stories of how that has helped me. But, you know, it has helped us to the point now where we can give back, not just in one way, but in several different ways. The advantage that you have in this setting is that you have technology which affords you the information at the touch of a button. We, on the other hand, never had that entity. So we had to wait for weeks sometimes, months sometimes, to go talk to somebody, or sometimes I had to wait a week or two to come to church to see somebody and say, you know, this person so-and-so. And especially when I was in Jamaica, Carlo can tell you about that. When I was in Jamaica, as young men, Carlo, we had one or two people who at church would say, oh, you need to do so-and-so and so, and come and talk to me afterwards, or meet me next week, Wednesday, at after prayer meeting, and then we can talk. So, you know, the advantage you do have here is that at the touch of a button, you can get some information and you can go forward. So feel free to, oh, one last thing I want to say before I shut up. Yes, Nick, you will find, and other young men on the chat, you will find people who are ungodly people in our eyes, but they do have valuable information that they will pass on to you freely. And so you will need to weigh it carefully, of course, and measure it against the standards that have been set to you in the Bible. Yep. And you'll be all right. Yep. You will hear the voice behind you to walk with you when you go to the right or to the left. God will guide you.
Yep. Thank you, Ray. Good point. Good points. Sister June, how are you?
Good afternoon.
My Sister June even have a hat on. Okay, not even in the picture. How are you doing?
I couldn't dress down for this occasion. I said, okay, let me go change. I said, no, but if I get on camera, then I'll be looking rugged. So I needed to keep on my church outfit. So actually, just that quickly, Nicholas, my friend, is trying to get on the Zoom. I texted him. I said, I have volunteered you to be a mentor. So he's trying to get on. And
I'm obeying right now. I'm obeying right now, June.
Okay, awesome.
Voluntold. The first time I heard that was from a young person. I wasn't volunteered, I was voluntold. All right.
But yeah, you know, just a quick thing. My friend's name is Dennis, and when we had the last GC, we were in San Antonio, and he worked. He was in charge of a simulator in a building that did simulation with aircrafts and stuff. And so the young people that I knew that was there, I said, are you guys interested in going and doing this? And he was very accommodating. It was about 15 of us there. And we all got an opportunity to get into the aircrafts and do the simulation. So I knew he was up for it. So, you know, yes, I volunteered him, but he's that kind of great person that will be a wonderful mentor for Nicholas. So as far as the, initially there was, well, she's young. Yeah, we are the same age. So yeah, she's young. So she came on and she saw it was all men and jumped off. I said, no, it's open for everyone. And there are some other young individuals that I have. I'm going to call your names, guys, so be ready to hear it. So my nephew, Markel, and then I have two adopted niece and nephew, Alexis, Annabelle and Jeremiah, they're on. And there's some other young ladies as well who are on. So I sent out to over 400, but you know, this is what we have. So sometimes you have to send to way more than you expect to have, but I'm grateful for those who are on.
Thank you, June. So June, I'm going to allow you to pick one young lady to jump on and talk to me. Who are you going to, you pick. I'm not going to get myself in trouble here.
Annabelle.
Annabelle, where are you?
Please.
Thank you,
Annabelle. You don't have to do a camera, just unmute.
Hello.
Hi, Annabelle. How are you?
I'm okay.
All right. So give me your range. Are you below 20 or above 20?
Below.
Below. All right. What part of the country are you in?
North America, in Florida.
All right. So you in high school?
Yes.
All right. You've been listening in. I think I saw your name. So you've been listening in for a while.
Sort of, kind of, yeah.
Sort of, kind of. So you're familiar with the concept of mentoring and sponsorship and things like that?
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, if you had to pull together a board of advisors, people who you think could help you plan for your future, who would they be? And out of curiosity, what does your future look like? If you had to wake up after you graduate from college, where would you be going to work? What would you be doing?
Well, after college, I'd be hoping to start on my career that I'd studied for,
All right. You have something in mind yet?
anesthesiology.
Oh boy, that's way too complicated for me. So that sounds like after med school too, right?
Yeah.
So we need to have you start meeting doctors. All right, wouldn't that be on your list?
Yeah.
So, okay. And where would you, if you had to pick a med school you want to go to, which one would you pick if you had your choice? Do you know yet?
As of university wise, I would choose UCF,
Okay.
but I don't know any like medical schools specifically.
So for your board of advisors, as you begin to think about it, is how do you, if you don't already know, and I'm not assuming you do or you don't, but you would have to find doctors in your, specifically your field of anesthesiology, or just people in the medical profession. Have you been able to do that yet?
No.
All right, there's at least one doctor on here. So we had to figure out how you do that. And he's coming off mute. Do you know Dr. Carrington?
I do not.
Swelling
We'll be happy to meet. June can hook her up with me. I know June quite well. So
okay.
No problem. Kenny was on also too. Kenny left, but she could talk to Kenny also. She could talk to Dr. McCullough, who is on also. His son is a doctor over in the Loma Linda area. So there are lots of accesses that she can have, access points that she can meet here to help build our board of directors.
That's just 3 on one phone call. Okay, so you want to go, what you into sports?
No, not really.
Okay. Which high school are you going to?
Apopka High.
Okay, you're in Apopka, Florida. Okay. Great. So if you had a hard question you wanted to ask us, you get to ask us any question you want. What would you ask?
I'm not sure.
All right, I will let you think about it. If you change your mind, just raise your hand and then we'll get you back in, all right?
Thank you.
So in addition to those doctors, we also have a Dr. Lynch, who is a part of the Friends Talking, and we have other doctors that we have access to, who have been on our program that we can make available to these youngsters.
Right, so she's in Apopka, Florida. You need to hook her up with Don Lavelle and Burnett.
Yes. Yes.
They have clinics that they do in the Ocala area.
Yes.
That she can participate in now.
Mhm.
So I'll tell you, my daughter got interested in the medical profession when we started doing mission trips when she was 9 years old. And that's where she actually started doing dental work, believe it or not. They had her cleaning teeth, doing extractions and things like that when she was not legally supposed to be doing that. But we had a lot of dentists that do that. And on one trip, there were 3 generations of people who had done this on mission trips. 3.
Mm-hmm.
So one invited one, and she was going on with Monica, and one year she insisted she needed Monica to show up, and I forgot what country we were in. And she just, when we found out why, was because the person who encouraged her was going on the trip. And so this is the beauty of it, right? This is the networking where we can provide opportunities for young people that can do that.
Yeah. We also have Dr. Chris Levy in London, England. We have Dr. Hugh Allen, who is a dentist down in South Florida here, right in Pembroke. And the network is extensive.
Right. So June needs to take care of that. All right, June, while you're thinking of another young lady, Sebastian, sir, how are you?
Hi, Brother Hamilton. I am well. Thank you for asking.
Good.
I'd just like to commend you for this presentation. It is so powerful and relevant for us men. Mentorship is one of the most powerful tools available to men who are interested in influencing and impacting future generations. So it cannot be understated. I believe that each man should be mentoring another man or youth or boy. No man should be left behind. We are our brother's keeper. And, the funny thing is that men wake up every morning trying to figure out how to succeed. Yet still many of those men are failing. They're failing because there is no one to encourage them, to mentor them, to give them guidance. Only eternity will tell the impact of mentorship on the lives of our boys and youth and men. I believe that each of us need to figure out how to become genuinely interested in other men so that we can connect with them. Willport spoke about the disconnection or the unwillingness of the younger generation to listen to the older folks. But age gap should not be a challenge if you should become genuinely interested in someone's life. They will know if you're genuine. Right? And if you are genuine, they will listen to you. They will accept counsel and guidance from you. Right? I had the good opportunity of being mentored by some phenomenal men like Frederick Cox from Guyana. There was a group called Men of Purpose. And in that group, all the men there were old enough to be my father and grandfather, if not great-grandfather. And I was the youngest, and they always tug me along and give me good advice and good counsel, even when I wasn't confident in myself. Those men were confident of who I am and who I can become. When we would have television program, I was reluctant to go because I said, hey, I don't have much to contribute. But here, and I'm the man I am today because I had good men mentoring me. And even today, I still have good men who are mentoring and encouraging me along the way. And I would like to encourage each man on this platform to start mentoring someone, just one person. Just be available for them, because I believe if we don't have a friend or a mentor who we can call 2 o'clock in the morning if we have a problem, then we're in serious trouble, right? So if we can start mentoring one person, that would be phenomenal. Thank you very much for your ears.
Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you for those powerful words. You know, Sebastian, I've had opportunities. I can't think of how many young people I've mentored over the years now.
Before you go ahead, it's good to see Brother Hodes on the call. I'm a very good friend of his wife, Nellie Hodes. We went to Master Guide Club and stuff together in Guyana. So it's good to see him on the call.
Man, you really know if you call her Nellie. You know her well. Cleveland. So, you know, Sebastian, I've had the chance to mentor so many young people, and the joy I have is when some of them come back years later and they said, you know, here I am today and you gave me some good advice. And Sebastian, I'll be honest, I don't recall giving the advice. I don't recall having a very long discussion with this young person who has now achieved something. And while success is relative, it's the power of spending a few minutes and we don't know what we may say to someone to encourage them. But when you realize how powerful your words can be and the difference you can make in someone's life, it should scare you. Because so many of us walk away from that opportunity of just doing something. Daniel Smith, what do you have on your mind? You're on mute.
You know, it's Dan.
I'm not trying to.
That just was put up there. So yeah, I got a question that I was thinking about, that I been to a lot of fundraising events when during political season, different people, they would be running. I would, go to different fundraising events, and I would see some of the candidates and some of the people that were there. They would bring their kids. They would bring their kids to a lot of these networking meetings to introduce them to other people, other professionals. And these were our Caucasian brothers and sisters. And I was always impressed. I was like, wow, when I was that age, I wasn't thinking about
You were
going to
home.
that. Yeah, and so seeing that, it kind of changed my thinking. And I was just wondering, is that could that be cultural? We just were, we weren't kind of geared that way to. I saw them from 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. They were dressed up. They looked professional, and these parents were introducing them to politicians, to professional people, and they would say, "Hey, I have this program. What are you into? What do you want to be?" And it seemed like it was very encouraging at that early impressionable age. Do you think it's cultural?
Oh boy, I'm glad you raised that question. I believe it is. I have seen what you're talking about. It's cultural, but for some groups of us, it is not. And my older daughter, we had an arrangement. As long as it wasn't a confidential meeting or an event, she could come along. And she started this from 4 or 5 years old. She was my running partner. I didn't have sons, I had a daughter. And so I was going to say, wherever I was going, she could go. Whether it was football games, basketball games, anything. And the rule was she couldn't interrupt, but she could write down her question and ask me later. And it depended on the circumstance. So this goes on, Dan, until she was about 12 or 13 years old. Someone had a business problem, came over the house, and we're talking. And I remember her sitting there, and she goes, "Dad, isn't that tax fraud?" And this man's head popped up and looked, and I said, "Yeah, you're right." And his response was, "How did she know?" I said, "She's listened to enough of this that she was familiar with the context, and I knew she was listening." To the point now, when my daughter is in college and then dental school, the kids would go to her for advice. And she'd walk them through it. You need to do this, 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 and this. And one of her friends ran into a problem. A scammer got a hold of her friend, and this was going through. And my daughter finally said, "What you're doing is stupid. Here's why. And if you don't believe me, let's get my dad on the phone." So they called me up, and I started walking. I said, "Monica, what did you tell her?" Boom, boom, boom. I said, "She's giving you the advice already. You don't need me." So what happens is, the best training we can have is sitting beside someone. The best training we can have is sitting in the room and seeing the level of engagement, seeing how you respond to questions. Because that's the best training. So culturally, for Black people, we don't do that. Caribbean people, even worse. But when they grow up, we expect them to automatically know what to do. That's a problem. You don't have to take them to everything, but my theory was, Dan, I had a theory growing up, and you might appreciate this. I said, by the time my daughter was old enough, I would have brought her to any parts of the world that I have gone to and introduced her to me. So when some guy showed up talking about, oh, I love you, I'm going to do this for you, her response would be, been there, done that. What else can you do?
Wait, if I could jump in here. I don't know if it's so much cultural as educational. I think that we probably haven't been educated to those benefits. When I was a kid growing up in Barbados, I never got exposed to many things either. But as you heard my son and those guys say, after I came here and I got the education, I knew what it took. Now I'm able to impart that to my kids and take them to places that they had that I never went to when I was a kid. So I think sometimes we don't know, and that's why. But I think once we get educated, Barack Obama's kids are going to go to every meeting and stuff that he and his wife go to. You know, so I think it's more an education that we have to go through a process. We need to learn how to network, and I don't think that have learned that well yet because of or past a large degree.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop talking. Let you talk.
No, but I love your point. So some of it's cultural, some of it is education. I will tell you, I see a difference in certain socioeconomic groups than I will in others. And what I might suspect is this, Dr. Carrington, is that for many of us, we are uncomfortable in our own skin. And so we don't invite others to the party because we ourselves are uncomfortable. That is the great, and I discovered this with my father, wasn't very educated. While he went into business, he would have had a 6th grade education. And some of the advice he used to give me, I'm like, just don't understand. He wasn't going to the meetings, I finally discovered, because he couldn't really relate to it. So what we have to ask ourselves is this: if we, the competitive advantage, if you will, that we can provide the next generation is to bring them to a meeting, such as if you're buying a car, you're looking at houses, some of the real simple things in life we don't do. So every time I buy a car, I bring my daughter along. Why? She could see the process. She'd know the questions to ask. So I sit down with her and said, what questions do you think we should ask? I've also sent my daughter, hey, I'm looking at a car, I'm thinking about it. Why don't you go to the dealership and see what you can figure out? Why was I doing it? 1, it was giving her a dry run at it. 2, it gave her the confidence. And 3, she did a much better job because she's not emotionally attached to anything. Where I'd be like, I gotta win. So what we have to do, Dr. Sue Ellen, is just do this. This exposure, there's nothing better than giving someone an experience without being in the driver's seat. And the more we can do that, the more comfortable people become. And I talked about the Bible being one of the best business books. I grew up in the Adventist church. One of the best training grounds is AY. Man, I don't care how much you messed up. You got an amen out of the brethren.
Yep.
This is a chance for young people but now we want young people want to go right to the pulpit. What I'm suggesting is there's a process. If you can get to the part of going to AY, doing your role, doing it well, God would bless. My aunt made me mad. Even by the time I got to college, she was telling me to show up at AY. She had something for me to do. So I finally asked her one day, I'm old enough that you need to start asking me. Tell me. All right, someone corrected me there too. Yeah, Pathfinders is another good one. So at the end of the day, it's these experiences that we have to tell our children, look, I'm trying to teach you something. Here's the best place to do it. I saw Carlo.
Wayne,
Yeah.
just before you go to the next person, one of the books that you introduced to us the last time you were here is Business Secrets from the Bible. And I've started reading that book. I'm at around about chapter 15. But what has also happened in that process is that I'm starting to look at the Jewish culture and taking a closer look at them. And I'm looking at some of the YouTube videos on the Jewish family. And it happened that just this morning, I was looking at one of them who was preparing for the Sabbath. And it was interesting how the lady went about the preparation process. But also what was quite interesting was that on that particular morning, her son, who is about 9 years old, wanted to cook his own egg for breakfast. And here it was that this lady allowed her son to cook an egg for himself. And what she was saying was that she was giving him the independence. He wanted to be independent, and she was now allowing him to be independent with her supervision, cooking an egg over the stove. And I can recall, and even in many of my growing days, the thing that I heard was that you're too young to handle fire because it was dangerous. It was, and so we did not get the guidance as to, okay, this is how you manage the fire under the pot in order to cook the egg. And it struck a chord to me in that this mother was prepared to teach her child. Well, obviously the child knew how to do it because the child had seen the mother doing it over and over. But the child had now the confidence to do their own egg with mom's supervision.
Right. Absolutely. So that reinforces the point I'm making. Everything we do must be deliberate, and we must take the opportunity at every chance to do things under supervision so that we're not teaching them when they're older. We're not teaching them to play catch up. That, I think, is, again, some cultures do a much better job of these things than other cultures. And some of it is also economics. What I will tell you, though, this mentoring thing is powerful because if you begin to teach those things, one of the things I see today, most young people, and again, adult, they lack is confidence. And confidence comes from being able to do things. So what can we do to create that next generation who are confident and not scared to try? My daughter has no fear, and that scares me. My older one has no fear of anything. And that's a problem because she will figure out how to get it done. But what that also means, though, I've done my job. Now I have to balance it. So Carlo, Eddie, DJ, I think that's what's on your screen. So I'm gonna say what's on your name on the screen. So Carlo.
Hi. I wanted to point out, it's very interesting that we are talking about mentorship. And I listened to, I think was Wilpert, did I pronounce that properly? Wilpert McCullough, speak about the reluctance of actually, or I should say, being blocked to bring young people on. Very interesting, because my father and I were having a conversation just this week, and we were just looking at how Jesus operated. And he was saying to me, if you look at it, Jesus actually was taking care of the, okay, I see my son just signed in. Yeah, Jesus was taking care of other needs. It wasn't a spiritual need that he was taking care of first. And then he introduced them to the love of God.
Yep.
So that by the time it came for him to deal with the love of God, they had already seen it in action. And
absolutely.
Interesting that you just said that it's for us to be deliberate in our actions. This morning, my father is a Kiwanian, and because of his connection with Kiwanis Club, he volunteered North Street Church to be the location downtown where they would cook food, and every third Sabbath they would feed the homeless and the indigent at Poor Relief. Now, I've been out of the country, out of Jamaica for almost 20 years. Just came back. It's the second time. Today was the second time that I'd been there with him. Only because I had to drive him did I go the first time. But I was so impressed by it all. I determined that I was going to carry my son, because living in Belize and Turks and Caicos, you don't see the homeless on the street. You don't encounter. My wife said to me when she was getting him into Ardennes, she she said it was such an eye-opener just driving from her mother's house to the school. My son Kurt was saying, who are all these people on the road? Why are they sleeping on the road? And so I determined I was going to carry him so he could see for himself how other people live.
Yeah.
And he was so touched by it. Well, he didn't want to be there. You know, he's young, woke up early. I want to sleep. Don't want to go to church because I can have church at home. I think that's another bad thing COVID has done to our young people. But that's another topic. But he still got up, put on his clothes because he's an obedient child, and came with me. And he ended up helping, physically helping. And even when we were leaving, a bottle of water that he had gotten for himself, he passed it to someone. And I looked at it and said, all right, if I don't know anything, maybe I might spark this one's mind a little bit, hopefully. My older son, yes, Kurt, I am exposing you. My older son, I do wish I had him with me because he's at boarding school, still in Jamaica. But I know that even he has gotten some good guidance. And I tell you, it may not be cultural, but it is also necessary for us to have this mentoring issue. We haven't stressed it enough. Black men need this. The world has enough programs and enough commentary on the empowerment of young women and women in general, and I have nothing against it. But the great endangered species is an educated, motivated young Black man. There are not enough of them around, and they're not being cultivated. So my son was on his SDA Discord server. I told him, come and listen. He listened for a few. I thought he wasn't listening. He went and shared the Zoom link with one of his friends. I don't know if she's on, and he's 12. You never know when these youngsters are listening to you, taking note.
You know, Carlo, it's interesting. He went and did that. Now, his interaction with us, we would never have guessed. He went and did that. So this is the point we're making. Don't judge how they're not communicating how you would want them to. So the power of what you're sharing is the importance of the words and how it's just amazing that enough trigger that he went and shared with a friend. That's what we have to realize. Just because they didn't jump up and down and said, man, I'm happy to be here, does not mean we're not making the mark. And years from now, you may hear, Daddy, remember this? And you're going, son, I don't remember that. But thank you. Eddie.
Yeah. So far, I can say that this is probably just as good as the last session that you had. I'm so glad that we brought you back on. My comment was a question that Kenny put up some time ago, and I know that this is Black men helping Black men, but at the same time, my question to you is his question about getting that aid and assistance from someone of other ethnicities. Speak to that if you would.
So, you know, here's how I look at it. Good information is good information regardless of the thought.
Absolutely.
And we tend to believe that only people that look like me and have the same culture can educate me or teach me. And there's risk in that. So in America, we've got Caribbeans against Americans. And then for Caribbeans, you got this island against that island. Then we got Detroit versus Chicago. We are great about creating divides and garrisons, if you will, Carlo. You can relate to what I'm talking about. We create these garrisons because we believe it empowers us. And so we're convinced then that if I'm from Detroit versus I'm from Chicago, then when we get to Chicago, we go west side and south side. I'm from Mandeville versus Jamaica versus Kingston 21. Now, Carlo, you know there's no Kingston 21 is Miami, if you know about, right? So you have all these things, Eddie, and what I find is that the devil has created these isms that allow us to believe we're different. So I've got good friends that are Jews. I've got good friends that are white. I've got good friends at different places in Africa. What it means for me is, where am I getting this advice from and how do I use it? But I've discovered something. If I prayerfully ask God for guidance and prayerfully ask him to send it to me, I have to be open to where it comes from. It may be a bigot.
I have a constant battle with my Black friends that all white people are not bad. And the example that I give is that one of the first men who died in the when they were coming down south to desegregate the to force desegregating of the busing system was a guy named Goodman. This was a white guy named Goodman. He was one of the first men to be killed as a result of that process. And how many whites and how many people of other ethnicities have been a part of the struggle for us to be where we are right now? We could not do it by ourselves. There's always someone else. A turtle on top of a fence post did not get there by itself.
Absolutely. So, you know, Eddie, I'd add one thing to it, and I always remind people and of this one. So for those of the Caribbean, I chuckle and say, you realize your kids are American, right? And they look at me weird for a while and they think about it. So the same attributes that we begin to ascribe to one group, we ultimately ascribe to our children who are born and raised here. And the second thing is this: at the end of the day, the assumption that one group is bad assumes everyone in our group is good, and that's not true.
Right.
We should be seeking out the good. And at the end of the day, and I'm serious, some of the lessons, the biggest lessons I've learned are from people who don't share my ideology and probably don't like me. I'm unbiased from the source of my education.
Right.
So I saw, DJ, did your hand go down or up? And then I see, DJ, the screen keeps moving, so I apologize.
I'm still here. DG, Dennis.
Dennis, so you had your hand up at one point.
The only point I just wanted to piggyback, I think it was you or somebody made the mention of that about AY and so forth. I think that Adventism is one of the things that pulls folk out of mediocrity and out of social systems and provides them with an education to go forward and become amazing contributions to society. We are only 50 years out of the civil rights movement. Some of the islands are still in colonialism. Mm-hmm. And for us to have made the strides that we have made, doctors, attorneys, and all the professionals that we are, to think of bettering our communities and our children, I think Christ is the root of that being a truism, and Adventism has done a number within the church. Of
yes.
That. So I think that I think that it's, I don't know, I'm not so sure that it's cultural. It's just that I think one brother said earlier, we have not had the exposure, we have not had the length of reach to folks that have the authority and power that introduce us into those avenues. But I believe that in this short time that we have had the exposure, we have done marvelous, again, only because of our faith in God that has opened the doors and provided a foundation for us to accomplish the feats that we have done. That's my only.
Thank you, Dennis.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, I think if you do some of the studies, you'll find that for Blacks and Adventism, that there's a higher percentage of those who have gone on to higher education. So the data will support that. Galaxy Note 9, I don't know your name. You put yourself on mute.
Dennis that just spoke was the Dennis that introduced.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Giovanni is my name. So I own a business, quite a few, and I've been an Adventist my entire life. I'm in my 40s now. And I am actually from Jamaica. Kennecott is where I grew up. What I noticed—
Hey, you're from Kennecott?
Yes, ma'am. Brown
What's your
is
name?
my, Walter Brown is my father. Lorna Brown, her maiden name
Oh,
is
really?
Wild.
Tony Brown is your dad?
Yes, ma'am.
This is. Oh, I know who you are now, Giovanni. I remember you when you
Okay.
were a little boy. Okay, good.
There you go.
Okay, good,
So
good. I remember you
now
now.
that I'm in my 40s, what I have to understand, and I go back to the Word of God, is over time we've been okay with mediocrity, and we shouldn't be. And what I mean by that is, in Acts, where they say they brought everything to where no one was without, especially growing up in the Adventist church, I think something we should start to implement, especially with our people, Black specifically, we need financial literacy. You know, we look at AY as only a Christian thing, but we have to understand when God wanted us to prosper, he set his people apart for a reason. And when you look at the Word of God, it talks about the talents, how some people doubled and the one who held theirs. Something I heard from some of my Caucasian friends growing up, and their parents, oh, when you get a real job. Well, when you're 16 and the government takes taxes, that's a very real job, even if you're living in your parents' home. So what I've learned, I have a mentor myself. He's on his way to be a billionaire, Caucasian gentleman. He started sharing with me, and he's Jewish, some very interesting principles. One thing, especially when it comes about to business, the way the Jews look at this. He says, we don't steal, we don't manipulate, and we do honest and upfront business. He said, money itself is not incorrect. It is just a tool. He says, when you do business, part of prosperity is that you have gained because you have helped. Someone has valued your service or your product to where they have done a voluntary exchange and given you finances. One of the biggest things that stuck with me when he was saying this is what he explained. He said, you can never truly gain something that you believe inherently is wicked. There has been a lot of things through time, especially in our church, that has been twisted and misrepresented. Finance is a tool. God said, love nothing more than him. Father, mother, sister, brother. For some reason, our culture loves to only focus on the money aspect. I never understood that. It said for the love of money, the love of your parents is idolatry to God. The love of your things is an idolatry to God. And the leaps and bounds these other cultures make, I've been around quite a few of them, especially Asians. They were brought over here too in slavery to build the railroad tracks, how they support each other. They don't tear each other down. They do business amongst each other. The Bible talks about this also in Deuteronomy. It is the Lord that gives you the power to obtain wealth. But also, if you deal in business with your fellow brother, let's say Adventist, you charge them this. If you deal in business with the outsider, you charge them X amount of interest. So Bible, B-I-B-L-E, basic instructions before leaving earth. We're starting to not adhere to the things that God wants us to. We're looking at only spiritual lessons. I think the gentleman earlier made the best point. He healed their physical need before he talked to them about the love of God. So he took care of their need. This is globally, especially in America. Financial literacy is one of the worst things going on right now. The number one debt for America is student debt. You don't get with Chapter 7 or 11 bankruptcy out of that. That is federal government printed money. You will forever hold that debt. And the Bible speaks highly against that. Do not be in debt to the lender. The government system of this world is not that of God. So these little things that we love to adhere and take out from the word because to us, it doesn't seem spiritually sound, and we just need to talk about spiritual things. God is holding all of this into account with the talents. So what I would like to put forth is when we come together, and this is a great meeting for this. My dad sent me this link, and so I want to get on because I do business, and is that one of the basic things is, I think, would help us as a people, us as children of God, is financial literacy. Learning how to handle finances is a very big key spiritually, believe it or not, in how we deal with people, things, and the Lord himself. When God touched Joseph, whatever he touched prospered. And we serve the same God. Jesus didn't teach a different message. What Jesus taught was the spiritual and physical attributes together. He says, don't love money more than me. Even with those who are very successful, the disciples said, well, it would be hard to get Christ said it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle. And we need to understand that in context. Eye of the needle was a doorway in the Jewish culture than it is for a rich man to obtain heaven. But notice what the disciples, then how can we, Lord? But he said, with God, all things are possible. Meaning, if the Lord is the one who is giving you the ability to obtain wealth, and you have learned to manage it and be a good steward, then therefore it is God who takes us to the end. So what he was drawing that line, that very fine line, is that we need to understand these principles of God and not try to segregate them that I've seen over my 40 plus years. And obviously quite a few of you know my parents, so very ingrained in the church. Myself, I've been a head deacon elder at the church I was involved in, and I've noticed these things over the years. And so that is one thing I would love to add, is that we really need to get back to the Acts model. They brought everything. We assume it's just physical things. No, that's talents. That's resources to where no one was without. One thing I talk to my church about, they have to take it for a vote, is on Mondays to start a financial literacy class. One I went to, they didn't have much experience. It was actually a Sunday church. They just played Dave Ramsey videos. They paid for the entire set. And that's what the class was. They paid for the booklets and sent people home. And that is one thing that will bring people to God. Just like Sister White says, the health message is the right hand of the gospel. You take care of people's needs first, then they will be glad to spread the gospel.
Preach.
Not just say, brother, sister, I'll pray for you. And matter of fact, for us, to much is given, much is required, because there is a maturity factor God expects. To us, he says, if you know better, and you see someone in need and you have the resources to help them and you do not, that is sin unto you.
Wow.
This is personal stuff. So God understands that where we are today and the knowledge we have with the examples we have to hold account for everything. And this is something, me as an Adventist first and foremost, me as a man of color, understand about watchmen on the wall. They do not sigh and cry. Where God is, where we are in this time, God's hand is not short. We must look at our situations and ask, are we truly in right standing with God, and how we are dealing with his other children, and how individually we deal in our relationship with him based on the resources, skill set, and the means he's given us.
Thank you, Giovanni.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think, Giovanni, if we tie this back to this whole idea of mentorship, that's the holistic view of this, right? It's not parsing this up into unique pieces, but it's like one person accused me, how would you do this at work? And I paused and thought about that for a minute, Giovanni. I said, what you see at church is what you see at work. I don't know how to turn on spirituality when I get to the office, if that makes sense. It's this holistic view. And if you go out and do the studies talking about financial literacy, what didn't come up, I lead the shared value network for finance for Walmart. And I can tell you some astounding numbers that the average person is $400 away from catastrophe. that means if they have an expense greater than $400, they're in trouble.
Let me tell you,
Tell
actually,
you
in the regional
that there is the average wealth of a Black family is 2,000. The average wealth of a white family is 200,000. If we go another 400 years, we will never catch up to the 200 because they'll be ahead. So these are all pieces. And I think ultimately, these are the responsibilities that we have in teaching across the entire organization, the entire church. And to simply just say we're spiritual without appreciating the points you've made, we have failed. So well said. So what business are you in, Giovanni? It's a Sabbath, but can you tell me that? You're on mute. You're still on mute, Giovanni.
Host. Okay, I'm unmuted. Yes, I'm actually in the water business and water technology business. I have atmospheric units that take humidity and make fresh drinkable water, specifically alkaline water, naturally. And
based where?
Excuse me?
Where are you based?
Right now, I'm between Oklahoma and Houston.
Okay, so you're right next door to me. I'm over in Arkansas.
Okay, yes, my parents live in Arkansas.
We're
You're in
in
Bentonville.
Arkansas.
Actually, Walmart came and saw us in 2000 and what one it was it? 2013. We weren't at a place at that time to do business with you all.
Okay. Yeah, we as you know the story, we don't do well with small, right?
Exactly.
You say your parents are in Bentonville?
No, they're in Little Rock.
Okay, so let's connect because you're not too far from me.
Of course, of course.
Well,
yeah,
wait. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
And one of the things, especially doing what I do, not really to touch too much on business, these atmospheric units in the Bible, and you know, as we keep in touch in our true relationship with God, He's showing us things that are about to come, like the trucker strike that's going to start in March. He said, "My people perish for lack of knowledge because they reject knowledge. I reject them." But then we also say, he says right behind that also, he talks about his children, their bread and water shall be sure. So one of the things when I came across this technology, exactly, is that it solves a water issue globally. We have enough water in the air. It's reverse engineered dehumidifying. And God has done it through nature and osmosis. You know, comes up from the ocean, purifies itself, turns to fresh water, and comes down on rain. People kill over fresh water sources. The globe is thinking there isn't enough water, but the thing is, it's always been there. This type of technology is very, people would say next generation. No, I look at it as God knows the day and time. And if we read the Bible and we truly believe it, and I talk to a lot of Adventists, there's a difference in thinking you believe it and really believing it. There is going to come a time worse than the time of Joseph. I know that the Lord has put me with the technology I have for such a time when it gets there. In Revelation, it says 1/3 of all men will die. It's not a corona issue. This is what the Lord has prepped us for. This is what the Lord has told us about. And this is what he is expecting his people to prepare for, so that many will come to Christ and they will ask, well, how did you know? Because of my relationship with God. And he loves you just as much. So he'd like to have that same relationship with you. Yeah. So it's a lot of these things now that we are in the midst of. One of the things pre-corona that was brought to me was a water that I'm bringing out. It's a postbiotic, probiotic, alkaline water, natural 9.5 to 10.5. But the interesting thing about the probiotic postbiotic, it's a metabolite. It's new research and it needs no refrigeration. It's completely plant-based, and how we produce it is proprietary to where it cannot be infected by other bacteria. That's something unlike men. That is something of God and God alone. It is clear. It has no flavor. We have research certifications, have gone through many lab tests to prove this since 2010. And so it's things like this to get our body back, because I take the Bible at his word very seriously. It says, those who destroy the body, I also shall destroy. Right. So there's a lot of principles in teaching in the Word of God that sometimes we overlook that need to be really focused on. Also, if our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, our thought process is dictated by God if we truly surrender ourselves to Him. So knowing these things and what's about to come, it's very foreshadowing. And once again, all things work together for good. This is considered a divine appointment. What we're having right here is because He's expecting His people to get together, His true people to get together, to where when He is prepared to come, we can all lay our crowns down and hear, "Well done, good and faithful servants."
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you.
So Wayne, I just wanted to mention that we're normally a 2-hour program, and we're at that 2-hour mark. But I'm quite willing to go on if there are more questions and if there are more answers that individuals would like to have. We can leave it open and continue the conversation if that's okay with you, Wayne, and everyone else.
I'm fine.
Okay, good. Let's continue going. So I think there was I don't want to mispronounce the name. Let me see if I can find the name of the person. Horns, Cleveland.
Eddie, you can't point down because we don't know who you're talking to. You're on mute.
I think Cleveland had his hand up earlier.
Hey, Cleveland.
Cleveland, can you unmute and go ahead with your question? Okay, we'll take someone else in the meantime. Cleveland might have stepped away. Or Wayne, you can continue, Wayne.
So if we want to, I always like to summarize as we go along, just to make sure at least where I am in the thinking and the realization, and I'm sort of intrigued by what Giovanni had to say. And if you listen carefully, if you don't understand when he's dropping words like alkaline, you don't understand what he's referring to, because this is where exposure to different things are helpful, right? Which is what a good mentor can do. So they'll tell you what he didn't say was alkaline water is the best water, and that there are companies now that are going out, I see him nodding his head, to sell that water because it's so pH balanced and it's better for your body. So one of the things that are good, and I mentioned some of the characteristics of a mentor, it's education, it's giving you background of information. So when you run into Giovanni and you hear these things, you all may go, all right, how serious is he? Is he just talking? Go do the research and you will find the power of alkaline water, which is why they tell you to put some lemon in it, right? Because it's acidic and he's trying to get the water back the opposite way. So these type of calls, you will hear things that stretch your thinking and stretch your thought process that should challenge you to go back. And that's what a good mentor will do. I can't tell you how many times I've had a discussion or met with a Giovanni and someone said something, I go research it, and I go to work and someone says, hey, we're looking at a deal. We're thinking about doing this. And all of a sudden, I have a base, a head start on the topic. That's the power of the Holy Spirit. That's the power of God working in our lives. So as a mentor, as you're teaching about these observation and listening skills, Giovanni was on here for a while and he's been listening, didn't jump in early, just pointing out an observation. He's listening, then he gave his point of view. It's about what opportunities do we create for each other. We've heard it come through today with at least 2 young people. It's creating a vision and a goal. Giovanni sounds like he has a vision, right? He's talking about this wellness. If you go into corporations now, they're talking about ESG. Giovanni, you know what that is, right? Sustainability. How are we going to sustain our water? These things are in demand, but how do we balance this? It's how do we empower? And most importantly, how do we make them think? If you can't challenge young people to think, then we're missing the point. If you can't challenge a person you're mentoring to think. And then a commission. Giovanni sort of threw something out there. He says a commission is this, that we've got to be ready. What commission are we telling our young people? some of us, is it going to make money? You know, I will tell you this. It doesn't matter how much money you make. One illness can wipe out your cash for generations. Now, I told you about my daughter, and I'll give you an example. What I didn't tell you, she graduated from dental school. What I didn't tell you was 2 days after she graduated from dental school, she had a lupus flare-up and then spent the next 11 months in a hospital and then rehab. What I also didn't tell you, she ended up having to have her leg, below her knee amputated. What I didn't tell you was that she may not be able to use her hands because her entire nervous system was shot. She spent over 2 months in ICU. We didn't know if she was going to live and die. When the hospital invited us and said, hey, come and see her, and we thought we were getting a buy to get in, they didn't know if she was going to make it. I share that because of her personality, and there's hope and there's ideas that we can give her as to what else she can do, and a realization that when I show you a hospital bill that's probably more than a foot high, one catastrophe can change your life for good or for positive. The question is, we must teach young people that life's not perfect. Life is full of challenges, and the successful people are those who can navigate whatever is thrown at them. That's what we're not teaching that next generation. They come up and see us living good. They come up and see us life is good. But until they begin to struggle through some of the decisions that we need to teach them today, as Black men, we need to do that. As Black women, we're doing that. And DJ, someone said it well when we were talking about the young lady, it was Carlo. There's a lot of great resources for Black women, for women in general. But I keep saying this, and you'll understand why. I'm a little biased. I have girls. I need good young men. So if someone's not teaching the boys into how to become a good man, where does that leave me? I'm not going to be as lucky as Dr. Carrington, who seems to have a great son-in-law there. Did you hear how his son-in-law spoke about him? That's the power of mentorship. Mm-hmm. That's the power of making a commitment to the next generation. Any more questions? Thoughts, ideas?
So just wanted to add also that there is another doctor in Orlando, Dr. Moore, Eric Moore. I'm sure Daniel knows him. He's also here. So that's another resource that June has at her disposal.
Yep, someone threw Grace Levy Clark in there. Mm-hmm. Tons of resources. Wilbert. Wilbert doesn't like coming off mute. Wilbert's like me. Hey, you put yourself back on, Wilbert.
You got to unmute, Wilbert. You're still muted.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple of things. When somebody had mentioned about that they wanted to be an anesthesiologist, mm-hmm. Right? And you said that you're talking about med school and then anesthesiologist. If I may offer this, that you could either go the med school path, or you could go the nursing school path.
Mm-hmm. Nurse anesthetist.
Yeah. So you go to nursing school, you get your bachelor's, you get your master's, and then you go on to do a CRNA. Mm-hmm. Right? As a certified nurse anesthesiologist, right? Okay. So that is one path. I have several members of my family who have gone that path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Information, Wilbert, information.
Yes. And the other thing I want to say, Wayne, is that I really like the tone of the meeting. I really do love it, because what I've noticed over the years among some of our Black people is that once they go through a door, they lock the door behind them. Okay, you know, very seldom you see them holding onto a hand and say, "Come through this door with me." All right, it's like if you see somebody on campus with a bunch of keys, big bunch of keys, you better respect them very well, because they have the key to every door, and they can either open it or lock it against you. So, you know, this matter of mentorship, I really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. You know, if you want to, Eddie tested me.
Huh?
Eddie tested me after the last meeting. I don't know if Eddie listened to the whole thing. Eddie tested me, right, Eddie? Eddie called me up and says, "Hey, I want to talk to you."
Yeah, yeah.
And then he says, "Hold on, it's not really me, it's my wife." We had a great conversation.
Yeah.
So Eddie said, "Hey, I'll test you at your word." And we won't go into the rest of the details, but the point is, you're so spot on. Look, we still like to say we're the only one that looks like us that lives on the block.
Yeah.
We're the only one that has accomplished this. We have a responsibility. The more people that we can get through the door, regardless of what they look like, is the more people we get through the door that helps us in the future. We are still too selfish as a people. We still believe that we can make it on our own. And I didn't get to the last one. I mean, we spend a lot of time in mentors. Let me just close out with this, what I call sponsorship.
Yeah, maybe before you go, Wayne.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I was about to say that if you want to see the lack of mentorship, just look at when you're changing the guard at church. When it comes to nomination time, and you change the guard of at church, and you see how many people get mad when the guard is being changed. You know, instead of grabbing this opportunity to mentor a new leader, just look at the reaction when the guard is changed at church.
Yeah, because, you know, Wilbert, really what people are telling you is that church life is everything that defines them. It's everything about them. Every position's about them. And maybe I'm at the point in my life, I've come to appreciate that's just one place to live out my ministry. And once you get comfortable with that, because what people will tell me is, well, you should use all what you're doing for the Adventist church and you should do more to help. And I smile and I go, look, I've even been told, well, you're a lawyer. We're not sure why you're a lawyer, but every time someone gets in trouble, I get a phone call. So we give our young people these mixed signals. What we should be doing is something someone said earlier. Until we begin to nurture and care for others, this was Carlo, until we begin to feed people and nurse people back to health, they will not care about your God.
Yep.
Until you accept that, you've missed the point. We believe we can walk in and say, look, God is good. And he's a great God. And all of a sudden they bow down and say, yep, we're going to go do this. The greatest success you have is when you're willing to be vulnerable, spend the time and the resources to engage someone. And it may start with you, Wilbert, goes to Giovanni, it goes to Marcel, it goes to someone else, until finally that person accepts God. The problem is we think we're that good. So when people are changing, I see people fighting over church position. I say, Lord, help us. Dennis.
I don't know if this has been communicated previously, but the only point I want to make is that one of the things I think about is integration is one of the things that I think shot Black people in the foot. Integration was something where that you had a Black community where Blacks communicated and sold amongst each other. But when we integrated, we didn't see the need to go to the black grocer or the black shoemaker, et cetera, and even to a degree today. What, you know, I'm not one to try to reinvent the wheel, but what I remember reading and seeing is that there once was called a green pages, where when a black person went from, say, Chicago to Houston, they knew, okay, in this green book, I knew, okay, these are the places where I can go stay, I can go eat, and so forth and so forth. My point is that when we have young people that are going for interviews or going for jobs, there is no representation in the HR department for them, for their resume to go from the bottom of the stack to at least be considered. Is there a concrete database that we have, whereas that you're an attorney, you're a physician, that our young people can turn to and say, listen, Uncle Carlos, can you help me? I have an application in at UFC. Can you walk it through? I have an application in at Walmart. Can you help me navigate it? It said, is there something that we have of such a nature?
Mm-hmm. I am not aware. You know, it's in pockets. Operation Reachback, I think, had something at some point. But let's imagine for a moment, Dennis, I'll answer the question this way. We are 2 degrees separated from most answers we're looking for. The studies show that we're 6 degrees separated from knowing someone. So I used to have this, we used to have this as a joke. I used to go to young people and do talks, and I go, there's no one in this world that I can't reach in 6 people. And I'd say, test me. I've never lost. Mm-hmm. Because either I know the person or I know someone who knows them, but I've never had to go more than 3 to find. What you have to say to yourself is this: you got a network, you got a community right here. You all have that WhatsApp. Now, I don't respond to a lot of them because I wouldn't get my job done. But if you simply say, hey, look, I need, so Giovanni is going to say, hey, I now know someone at Walmart. Mm-hmm. I know they've been out to see me. Eddie, I know someone at Walmart. So how can you call me? And I get calls all the time from people that don't look like any of you on this call who's saying, hey, can you help me? So you have to say, hey, do I know a lawyer? I know someone trying to get in med school. Who do I know? Put the word out. You don't have to know the lawyer, but put the word out on the street. This is your village. This is your community. And the day that this community stops giving you resources, you need to quit. Marcel on here still? You need to quit the community. Because the community is not providing anything for you. You don't need it. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's real talk. So what I do is I belong to groups where I have people that can connect me. Why? Because that's what's important. God has given us the resources. The problem is we want the resources delivered like the competitor to Walmart. Mm-hmm. We don't want to go to the store. We don't want to go to the neighborhood market.
I think someone made the reference earlier that our Jewish brothers are like that. Mm-hmm. They buy from each other. They communicate with each other. They know that Schwartz over here, my brother-in-law, he's an attorney, or he works at Southwest Airlines, and he can walk my application through. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we need to do to communicate with each other. So that's my.
So Dennis, let me just jump in here. You're welcome to become a part of Friends Talking. Giovanni, you're welcome to become a part of Friends Talking. So this group of men that we meet on a Sabbath afternoon is not just about talking. Last year, there was a young man at Northern Caribbean University who was there for 10 years and could not finish school because his debt was so high. The group of men here pooled their resources together and paid off his entire school fee. He's graduating this year. This year, we are embarking to take on 2 more guys. And what we have decided to do is, rather than pay their entire school fee, is say to them, we will pay 75% of your school fee, The other 25% is your responsibility. In other words, you need to work. And we have left this group available to those young men. When the president of Northern Caribbean chooses those 2 young men, they will be mentored by men of Friends Talking. And so this is just such a powerful session that we've had today, that our minds, and I keep saying this to the guys, Ellen White said in education, the mind is stretched by an ideal, cannot return to its original dimension. And we today have been stretched, and we cannot return to who we were at 2:30 before we began.
Thank you, Marcel. I think that's part of the answer, right? It's the giving back piece.
Hi, this is June again. Sometimes I see myself as a resource individual. A lot of times I may not have it, but God has given me the opportunity to connect others with those who may have it. And even on this line today, I know a few ladies jumped up because it was presented as a men's talking group. And maybe because I'm comfortable because I grew up with 6 brothers. I'm one of 14. But it's just interesting that, and folks have texted me, this is fabulous information and all that, but it's just unfortunate that we as a people, we don't recognize when there is value in certain things. I mean, like I said, I have texted this to over 400 people. I kid you not. But those individuals, they're like, oh, this is just friends talking and this is another thing. But, when you are in the water and see, as Giovanni was talking about, we need to have the exposure, but we don't recognize that we need the information. And so our minds are closed, our eyes are closed, and we're walking around like deaf, dumb, and blind people, and are going to be walking into bricks, and it's going to be impacting us in a significant way. I'm grateful that the young people that I have my nephew is on, 2 of my nephews are on, Markel, as I said, and Lindor, and Annabelle, and her brother came on. But relationships are helpful. And these are individuals that I have relationships with on a regular basis. And so it's really a blessing to know that they're on and they're able to get the information as it's being shared.
Yeah. June, thank you for sharing that. I had a tough discussion with my nieces and my nephew before he passed away. And I read them the Riot Act. I told them, it's amazing how many white kids call me and try and get on my calendar.
Oh, man.
And they don't call me.
Oh, man.
I was livid with them. This was one Christmas. I haven't seen them since, but I read the Riot Act because I said, it's interesting. Here I am talking to people about their career, and not one of you said, hey, Uncle Wayne, can you help me do something? My godchildren do. I've got tons of godchildren. So for me, it's really about how do you get our young Black men, young Black women to go, hey, here's a resource. You don't have to agree with the person, but what you want is a connection. And until we figure that out, we're going to continue getting the same responses we do today. We want to do things our own way. We're proud, we're Americans, so we do it the cowboy on the range out there by themselves. When I tell you every other generation I know, every other group, they work the system. If I call my Jewish friends, and I got a whole bunch of them, I know exactly who they're going to refer me to. Every time. Because they're wired that way. We're wired to, we need to change our wiring.
I think the gentleman mentioned it before about desegregation versus segregation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a large part, because when we got out of where we had to go to our own, to the point where now we feel that it's a good thing to go someplace else. Mm-hmm. And we do have to rewire ourselves to the point where we are looking at us to help us. It's a process, but I think that programs like Friends Talking, just as everyone has said, this is a crazy good meeting today. And as we look at having more meetings like this and opening the eyes of those who we are coming in contact with, I have an invitee on here right now, and he hasn't said anything, but he has been able to soak this up. So each one reach one is, who are we going to tell again? This needs to happen again. This mentorship meeting needs to happen again on Friends Talking, so that we can bring folks in to be able to have this. We need to have something where all of our kids who are going to be going into med school, this Friends Talking is going to be about med school folks. How can we bring in different groups to be able to say, this is how we can feed into your heart, feed into your mind, so that we can point out people, because we know people who need help, but we don't have any place to direct them to. And this is a perfect place that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
We have two hands. We have Carlo and we have Giovanni. And what I want to say is, these are the last two, because we're coming down to the end. We want to go on ahead and let these two be the last ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Eddie. I wanted to say that this has been very important to me, primarily because even though I have long viewed myself as knowing a lot of people, and I have had some experience in connecting people with people, I think a lot of us are afraid to mentor because we're wary of being placed in such a position of responsibility. The importance of this meeting today, and Wayne, the last one that you had, has brought out to me that there's a lot that I can actually share. That even my life, as uneventful as I may think it is still something of value to someone else. And I should not let my self-conscious, doubtful mind stop me from giving whatever goodness God has given me to someone else. So thank you, Wayne. And I really hope that God will continue to bless this obvious ministry of yours. It's so necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo.
So
There you go.
yeah, so it's interesting. This is the first time I'm actually logging into this, but this week I helped 5 African Americans actually get their business started. They didn't have processing. I have a friend of mine, he's a Black gentleman, lives in Chicago. He owns his own processing company. And the young lady I helped, actually, she's not a younger lady. She's as old as my mother. She has a catering service and an event company, and she offered me her office because she said, you really need to start trying to mentor people. So outside of me in the water, I'm in the AI space, artificial intelligence. So that's something that I'm going to be doing, is having weekly mentor sessions. But on top of that, with knowledge and what we know, I'm going to be doing it on a YouTube channel. I also purchased my own streaming network, like Amazon, Netflix, just like that. And I noticed there's nothing such as that on any type of streaming platform. So that's something that I think would be very beneficial, is knowing how to use social media. I spend quite a bit of time doing that and figuring it out and studying on it and working with some of the top leaders in San Francisco IT that are in that space. So, much is given, much is required. There's a bigger reach that we can have with this. And
right.
The last thing I will say is, number one is always rely on God. This is our mission. A lot of people, my dad taught me one thing a long time ago. He says, you don't have to beg God. He's like, you just make your request, you leave it there, you have complete faith, and you don't keep going and asking the same thing over and over and over. He's like, you just have to trust that he's going to make sure.
I think we lost Giovanni.
You hit mute, Giovanni by mistake. You're on mute, Giovanni.
Is he still with us?
He went mute and he went, there you go.
He's gone.
You're on mute,
I'm
Giovanni.
here.
Oh.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. And so that's one of the biggest things is, you know, it's our mission. It's not us having to ask God what we need to be doing. It's walking in his favor, knowing this is the mission to reach every kindred, tongue, and nation. And so as we go about doing this, we should think on a global scale. Everything I do in business, I think internationally. I think, okay, if I'm working with God, what is stopping me from getting international? What is stopping me? This is how 3ABN started. God will bring the right people to translate. He'll do all of those things. But first, we have to step out in faith. So that is one thing, even though this is my first meeting, I call them divine appointments, that I've been setting up with this young lady, that next week I'm going to be starting a mentor session. I will end with saying this real quick. A lot of the things that we talked about when it came to education of our people, me living in Oklahoma for a while, if any of you are familiar, you can look this up about the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, how they burned it down. We're talking about, us supporting our own people. I started looking on the psychology of a lot of things that we've gone through, especially through slavery. And I noticed in our culture, you know, I stepped away from God in the church for a while. I was into hip hop and stuff. They wear a lot of chains around their neck. It's a spiritual thing, but it's more mental of bondage. They put diamonds on them. Instead of going it through their own neighborhood, they spend $1,000 on a chain than to buy up property because they don't understand the value. So another thing is, it's not to belittle anyone or take from, but we also need to stand up. Without correction, there is no genuine love. And we need to start getting our young people, not just within the church, even people of the world, to let them know these examples out there in the hip hop industry doing these things, the things they look at, the things that they're exposed to, that is not where it should be. And we need to have them understand on what level, because it took me a while to start understanding these things. I was like, why would they spend, even when I used to listen to this music, I was like, you spend $100,000 on a diamond chain around your neck. Look at the most successful people in the world who wear suits. They don't do these things. Why do we do this? It's because our mind, we're still in a captive enslavement mindset. So it's one of those things about freeing the mind, bringing knowledge, bringing wisdom. And the most important thing is understanding. Jesus was able to reach through every level because he could speak to where they had full understanding. And as we go about this, is we must rely completely on the Holy Spirit, because he will bring forth those who need to, and the impact will be global.
Wow.
Thanks about that Black Wall Street thing there. Enough of us annoyance.
That's indeed, that is true. We want to thank you again, Wayne, for coming on today. This is such a wonderful event. This wasn't our highest one, but it was the highest one we've had in a while. We had up to, I think it was 32 who were on board, but because of the impact of this one and the fact that it'll be going up on YouTube, this is going to be able to give us the opportunity of reaching a lot more people. Continue to invite. In fact, what I would love is for all those young people who came on today, we would love for you to become a member of Friends Talking. We know that we're going to have to exclude the women from that, because Friends Talking is for men. But whenever we have the opportunity of having a meeting where it's open up to the general public, we want to have those individuals come on board. I'm going to ask one more time, Wayne, that you come back a third time. I'm not going to chase you down this time to do it, but I want you to put on your calendar. You give Marcel the date that you want to come back, and we'll be glad to have you.
And just before you finish, Eddie, for those gentlemen who are interested in joining with us on Friends Talking, we have a WhatsApp chat that we talk virtually every day about any topic.
Yes.
No topic is off limits. sex, marriage, finances, everything. My number
Sometimes
is,
they talk too much too.
Yes, they do. Just like Wayne said, if we talked all the time on the line, we wouldn't get anything else done.
There you go.
my number is in the chat. You can send me a text message and I will add you to the group. And you can and feel free to participate in the way you want. You feel.
So with that, I'm going to say we're going to say goodbye. We're going to let everyone go. We've enjoyed the comments that everyone has had. So have a happy Sabbath. Enjoy your meals. Those of you who have not had a chance to eat yet, I have not as well. But we're going to say goodbye at this time. Let's close out with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for the opportunity we've had here to talk to so many people and to have the need to mentor, the need to share, the need to take someone by the hand and walk them through. Give us opportunity to reach those within our sphere of influence, that we will be a blessing to them, is my prayer. In your name, amen.
Amen.
All
Thank
right.
you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Have a wonderful week, guys. God bless.
Good day.
Thank you, Wayne. Marcel, thanks as always.
Yes. God bless, guys.
All right.